I'm sitting on a rock on the lower slopes of Arunachala. Devotees who are familiar with Bhagavan's pictures might remember there's one. I forget which leg. He has one ankle on his knee and he's holding a stick. It might be the other hand, I can't remember. You see this rock here framed on one side and the peak of Arunachala behind. One of my favourite photos, the favourite photos of many other people. I've put it on the cover of at least one of my books. I've decided to sit on this rock, which is still here, to tell a few stories about what happened when Bhagavan went walking on the hill, mostly in the last quarter century of his life. Before I do, I just want to put in a word for this rock. I discovered it perhaps 30 years ago and decided not to let anyone know about it, simply because I thought if it was too publicly known, somebody might come one night and run off with it. In the late 1980s, the path to Skand Ashram was resurfaced, and the ashram workers who were given the job were scavenging for boulders on either side of the path. And I came up one morning to see what they were doing, and I noticed that they'd taken all the rocks up to about 6 feet in front of me, so I thought, I'm going to protect Bhagavan's rock. That's my job for the day. So I sat on this rock, and when anyone came with their crowbar or their hammer, I'm saying, sorry, this is Bhagavan's rock, you can't have it. So I actually sat on this rock for 8 hours one day in the 1980s to make sure it wasn't turned into rubble or paving for the new path to Skand Ashram. Bhagavan always insisted on having at least 2 walks on the hill every day. He would have one in the early morning and one in the evening. After lunch, he would usually go to Palakottu, walk through the trees there, meet any devotees, occasionally visit them. But the morning and evening sessions, that was his downtime. That was the time that he was alone with Arunachala. And I think those were the periods that he was off duty. I think probably of all the times during the day, that was the one time when he could commune with the mountain, his own guru. He had an attendant who came with him to make sure that nobody bothered him, and everybody who was in the ashram was told in no uncertain terms, nobody follows Bhagavan up the hill. You can wait at the back gate and watch him walk down, but his time on the hill is sacrosanct. Nobody should interrupt him. He had stopped going for Pradakshina in 1926. He didn't go as far as Skand Ashram for a period of about 20 years, so his walks were tended to be maximum half an hour. And Annamalai Swami told me that he once was persuaded to walk about a mile to see the opening of a new pumping station behind a big lake that was here. On one occasion he went as far as the end of the Samudram Dam to see the overflow. And there's one story that Viswanatha Swami has told, and Annamalai Swami also told me, that in 1929 Bhagavan and Ganapati Muni made a semi-secret walk through the forest at the foot of the hill to Katu Siva, which is about a half-hour walk from here around the bottom of the hill. Now that is an interesting story for me, because Ganapati Muni had had a major Kundalini experience. He had an opening of his skull on the top of his head, after which he found it very difficult to be in direct sunlight. So the fact that they could walk from Ramanashram to Katu Siva after lunch at the hottest time of the day indicates to me that in those days there was still a residual band of forest at the foot of the hill. I asked Annamalai Swami about this. Annamalai Swami was Bhagavan's attendant for that particular walk, and he agreed. He said, yes, when I first came, maybe the bottom 100 or 200 feet of the slopes still had some old forest. He said there was a glorious old tree at the back of Palakottu, and just some general South Indian native forest all the way as far as Katu Siva. It was possible to walk there continuously through trees. And that's what Bhagavan and Ganapati Muni did on this day in 1929, because Bhagavan had talked to Ganapati Muni about a tree that had been mentioned in some famous Sanskrit work called Ingudi tree, and he said, oh, there's one of those at Katu Siva Ashram, let's go and have a look. So they secretly went off after lunch one day, and Muruggana had heard them making their plans, and he very much wanted to go for a walk in the forest with Bhagavan, but he knew he wasn't invited and he didn't want to mention the subject to Bhagavan in case he was told not to come. So when he discovered that Bhagavan had gone missing and Ganapati Muni wasn't there, he realized this was the day, and just by some strange telepathic intuition he managed to track Bhagavan, Ganapati Muni and Annamalai Swami all the way to Kattu Shiva ashram through quite dense forest. That's a distance of 1.5 miles in one specific direction, and he caught up with them as they were sitting under this tree that Bhagavan had taken Ganapati Muni to see. These long trips were more or less exceptions to the rule. The general routine, Bhagavan would come up here after breakfast. He would walk maybe 10-15 minutes, he would sit on a rock such as this, then he would go back and start his daily routine in the ashram. After lunch he would go and visit devotees in Pelakottu, or he would just wander through Pelakottu, a different route every day, and of course everybody there was hoping that it was going to be their lucky day, that Bhagavan would stop by, say hello, have a few words with them. There were some people in Pelakottu who, for various reasons, were not allowed into the ashram, so this was the only chance they ever got to see Bhagavan. Bhagavan knew this, and if they had been exiled from the ashram for any reason, he would make a point of stopping by their hut, saying hello, and giving them a few words of encouragement. The one thing you couldn't do when Bhagavan was walking in Pelakottu was make any attempt to make him welcome. S.S. Cohen discovered this. He said he had a porch which offered some shade from the sun in summer, and that occasionally when Bhagavan was walking that way, he would come and sit on the porch, have a little rest, and then get up and carry on. So Cohen would peep through his window and have his private darshan of Bhagavan sitting on his veranda and be very happy. And then he made a mistake. He put a chair out there just in case Bhagavan happened to be coming that way away. He thought it was more respectful to have a chair there in case Bhagavan came. Bhagavan took one look at it, walked on, and never sat on that veranda again. The one thing you couldn't do when Bhagavan was out walking was show some sign that you were expecting him, and you definitely couldn't make any attempt to make him more comfortable. If you did, that was probably the last time you ever saw him in your house. Major Chadwick made an even more foolish attempt to get Bhagavan into his house. Chadwick was very attached to the idea of having some kind of formal recognition that Bhagavan was his guru. I think he came from a background where you really did need to have a guru who said he was your guru and who had given you some kind of formal initiation as a recognition that you were now his devotee or disciple. Bhagavan, of course, never said he was a guru, and he never formally initiated anyone. So Chadwick was feeling a bit left out. He wanted some kind of sign that there was a formal connection between the two. So he persuaded Bhagavan's attendant on one of his lunchtime walks. He said, sometimes he comes back through my corner of the ashram. When he does, why don't you suggest that he come in and sit there, and maybe I can get him to give me formal initiation by putting his hand on my head. Now, I have to say, I thought Chadwick should have known better than that he would get away with something like this, but Bhagavan somehow got wind that Chadwick was waiting for him, that he wanted to ambush him and compel him to give some formal initiation by touch, and he wouldn't even follow his usual route that day. He took a route that was so clearly avoiding anywhere within hailing distance of Chadwick's house that Chadwick realized that he knew that he was waiting there to ambush him and demand this initiation, and after that he dropped the idea. So you could wait for Bhagavan to come, you could hope he would talk to you, he might sit on your veranda, but any sign that you knew he was coming, that you were trying to make him comfortable, or any attempt to get him into your house to do something, and quite likely that would be the last time you'd ever see him. Now there are a few instances of devotees in extreme situations flouting the ashram rules and getting away with it because the circumstances merited it. As I said, the attendant's job was to discourage devotees from coming anywhere near Bhagavan on his walks, but perhaps the story that I like the most is of a military convoy of British soldiers which was on its way to Bangalore, and they were driving past the ashram. One of the enlisted men had heard about Bhagavan, was attracted to him, but under the military rules in force in India at that time, there was no possibility that he could get leave to come and visit Bhagavan in Tiruvannamalai. So he had one chance and one chance only to have darshan, and that was to persuade the driver of the truck he was in to speed ahead as he was approaching Ramanashram, drop him off, and then run through the ashram as fast as he could, prostrate to Bhagavan, run out again, and his driver was going to loiter at the back of the convoy, and he was going to jump on the back of the truck and carry on his way to Bangalore. So that might have worked, except Bhagavan was off on one of his walks when this soldier ran in full military uniform, shouting, "Where's Bhagavan? Where's Bhagavan? I've got 30 seconds, where is he?" And everybody said he's walking on the hill, without mentioning that he wasn't allowed to follow. So this soldier was in no mood to be stopped by anyone. He charged all the way through the ashram, out the back, and he found Bhagavan in Palakottu with Annamalai Swami. He's the one who told me this story. Now, in the early days of the ashram didn't even have toilets, and so Bhagavan was squatting behind a bush in Palakottu doing his business, and Annamalai Swami was standing guard. And this British soldier in full British military regalia threw himself full length on the floor at Bhagavan's feet and said, "Bhagavan, I only have a few seconds with you, please bless me." Now, of course, Bhagavan never blessed people overtly, but he smiled at the devotee and just showed some indication that he'd given his blessings in a non-physical, non-verbal way. The soldier got up, he raced back down to the road, and the loitering truck at the back of the convoy waited. He jumped on and was never seen again. And Bhagavan mentioned to Annamalai Swami on the way back that he was a good devotee with a burning desire to see the Guru, and that showed. He said he has a very difficult karma. This is his only opportunity in this life to come and see me. He took advantage of it, he came, and that's his blessing. He got his blessing.